to the calendar here. Can I please have the commissioners on my left introduce themselves?
Estorino, Richmond County Republican, good afternoon.
Mike Brandino, Florence County Republican.
Simon Shua, Kings Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Michael Michelle, Queens Republican.
Marie Guastella, Richmond Democrat.
Executive Master?
Mr. Ryan.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Nina M. Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Matt Graves, candidate representative. Ken Cohen, Council of the Commissioners. Stephen Dankberg, Council.
Stephen Richmond, General Counsel.
Raphael Smith, Deputy General.
Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Okay, we have the first item on the agenda is hearing on certificate of authorization filed with Trevor Archer as the Green Party candidate for the member of the New York State Assembly 83rd District.
Commissioners, we received this notification pursuant to your direction at the last meeting. Notice was sent to Mr. Archer and to the co-chairs and secretary of the New York State Green Party. Are there any appearances for those parties with relating to this matter? Please step up and identify yourselves.
Gloria Matera, Co-Chair, Green Party of New York State.
Mark Dunley, member of the Executive Committee, Green Party of New York State.
Michael O'Neill, co-chair, Green Party, New York State.
Ladies, have you filled out a notice of appearance? If you could just hand that in, please. And is Mr. Archer here?
Yes.
My representative,
Do you have a notice of appearance, sir?
John Reynolds, Secretary of the Bronx County Green Party, with notice of appearance and a notice of authorization for Trevor Archer. I'm also here as representative of the Bronx County Green Party, which did not receive proper notice of this matter, but was indirectly notified, and I have a signed notice of appearance and notice of authorization on behalf of the Bronx County Green Party.
Can we just have the other party step back up?
Yeah. Counsel, could you come up?
The representatives from the Green Party State Committee, please stay up. Commissioners, if you recall, you have a copy in the booklet that provided you with all the information of my memo dated September 3rd, advising that on August 29th, we received a letter dated August 29th from the chair and the other officers of the New York State Green Party. That's on page 6 of the booklet. They're advising that the candidate for the 83rd Assembly District in the Green Party, Trevor Archer, is not an enrolled member of the Green Party, and he did not receive an authorization as required by the election law from the authorized and appropriate party committee to appear on that ballot for public office. The Green Party state party rules provide that unless you are in a affiliated county authorized by the state committee, the authority under the election law to issue certificates of authorization, commonly known as Wilson Pakula certificates, rests with the executive committee of the New York State Green Party, and that the copies of the certificate of authorization filed were alleged to be unauthorized and fraudulent on behalf of a not recognized entity. Again, we discussed this, presented this to you on September 4th. We gave notice to the parties that we believe are affected, which are the candidate involved and the complainant in the Green Party. You have attached in the materials a copy of both the certificate of authorization, the certificate of acceptance that was filed for Mr. Archer, the August 29th letter of objection from the New York State Green Party, a copy of the bylaws of the state party, Green Party, as confirmed as being filed also with the State Board of Elections, a copy of their notice to the Boards of Elections in 2013 advising the affiliated counties, and you have the material submitted by Mr. Reynolds on behalf of the Bronx County Green Party on September 12th, which is a series of emails together with a purported certificate of election of officers and a set of rules.
Mr. Richmond, how did you provide notice to the parties interested in this proceeding for today's hearing?
We provided notice, did we do express now or first class? First class, yeah. We provided notice by letter dated September 5th on page 3, mailing by first class mail to Mr. Archer, to the address set forth on his designated petition, and to the co-chair and the secretary of the Green Party by the addresses filed with the State Board of Election on the certificate of election. So I would think that the first thing would be Ms. Matera or your associates, if you want to take your objections formally to the commissioners.
Sure.
I just want to thank you all for allowing us to be here, because we know that the deadline for challenges on the ballot for petitions was past that, but as soon as it came to our attention that Mr. Archer was a Green Party candidate, we always review which candidates have filed for Green, in addition to who might be doing an opportunity to ballot. So we have that information, our campaign committee of New York State, and that's when we discovered Mr. Archer. He's someone who's known to us. He has been issued Wilson Bakulas in the past by the Executive Committee of New York State when requested and presenting the appropriate documentation. But we were not informed, and when we came to the board, I notified Mr. Richmond right away when we knew this, and his certificate of authorization was signed by 2 enrolled Greens in the Bronx. The Greens in the Bronx are not an affiliated county. You will see in our rules that the way you become an affiliated county is outlined very clearly. Because we are a small party, even though we're a ballot status party, we feel that we have to develop rules that are realistic for a party of our size, as long as they're in the parameters of the Board of Election rules. And so ours is for our executive committee to issue authorizations unless we have an affiliated county that's met that criteria, and we usually work hand in hand with the county to look at the candidates who are asking for the authorization.
Is currently the Bronx an affiliated county?
No, not under the rules of the Green Party of New York State.
Be required in this situation, correct?
An authorization would be required to be issued by the executive committee of the Green Party of New York State. So I think for us, it's fairly straightforward that the rules were not followed.
And no authorization was issued by your state committee?
No, we discovered an authorization was issued by these gentlemen for Mr. Archer and submitted to the Board of Elections. We had no knowledge of that.
Have you seen the authorization?
Yes.
And it's your state committee that it was not authorized at all by your
It was not authorized by anyone with the authority to do that.
And who would have the authority to do that?
It was issued by my co-chair and presiding officer, Michael O'Neill, and our secretary, Peter Lavinia, who resides in Albany. And the vote happens in the executive committee, which is a 9-person committee elected statewide by our members.
Are you a member of that committee?
I'm the co-chair of the party, the state party, yes.
And there was no such vote?
There was no such vote. No one brought to the attention that they would like Mr. Archer to have an authorization to run on the Green Party line as a non-Green.
Okay, thank you. All right, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, to Mr. Commissioner, Mr. General Counsel, and Deputy General Counsel. First of all, I would like to ask that the chair of the Bronx County Green Party be permitted to submit his notices of appearance and notice of authorization, both as in his capacity as chair of the Bronx County Green Party, which we assert is an affiliated county that has been continuously affiliated with the Green Party of New York State since 2008. At this time, I would like to submit into evidence documentary evidence exhibits letter D through J.
Do you have a copy for your opponents here?
I did not know that who would be representing the Green Party of New York State, despite my correspondence. So I apologize that I only have this copy, so I would like to submit evidence.
Just have them take a look at it first. Take a look at it. What's A?
A is missing. A was the means by which we were notified.
But A's not here, right? It's not in your package?
Yes, so strike A.
All right, so what's B? What's B through J?
May I read it off?
Is that your email that you sent to us?
No, A was the email from Gloria Matera by which we became aware of this hearing, the only means by which we became aware.
Yes.
After I spoke to Mr. Richmond and got the documents proving that this was submitted without our permission, I sent an email to my executive committee and all the state committee members. Before that, I actually, any message available, Facebook, text, calling, emailing both Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Lundgren, although I do want to say that they may be representing Mr. Archer about the ballot status, but they're not an affiliated county. Whatever they're presenting here was in 2008. That was before we had regained ballot status, and so we had different rules. We were not a ballot status party. We were a party that had lost ballot status and was kind of shrinking and trying to figure out how to build back our party structure. And when we received ballot status in 2010, we were required to submit rules as a new party. And so under the new party rules, it was clearly outlined how you become an affiliated county and issue authorizations, and the Bronx has never submitted that.
And those party rules were filed with the state board?
Yes, they were.
And a copy was filed with us.
I think we have that.
Yeah, Commissioners, those rules appear on page 13 of the materials, adopted according to the rules on January 28, 2012.
Can you hand up those exhibits?
Mr. Richmond, for the purposes of clarification, can you just state what documents are contained in B through J?
Exhibit B claims to be a draft set, some kind of printout of draft bylaws for the Bronx County Green Party with a clock-in date, an original clock-in date, so I don't even know how they got this back, of September 15th from the Board of Elections.
That's not my exhibit B.
This is Exhibit B.
No. It's a whole series.
We're going through them one by one.
Sorry. Let me tell you what the intent of exhibit B is.
No,
Let's just find out what we have, and then you can explain it.
Exhibit C is a set of Bronx bylaws of the Bronx County Green Party dated January 14, 2008. Again, bearing a clocking stamp of yesterday here at the board. Exhibit D, a notice from the Bronx County Green Party of the annual meeting for March of this year. Together, let's see, and notices of the meeting for each of the prior years going back from 2013, 14, 2008, 9, 10, 11.
Has the State Green Party in the years 2013, 12, 11, and 10 recognized anybody from the Bronx as a candidate? Well, I guess you didn't have to, because at that point you were a regular party, right?
Yes. After 2010, when we voted on our rules, I think actually they went from 2011 after we regained ballot status. In 2013 and in 2012, the executive committee of the Green Party of New York State did issue authorizations for Trevor Archer as a candidate who is not an enrolled Green. But that was done by Trevor Archer through Bronx enrolled Greens coming to us and asking for us to review that.
And were there any other candidates from the Bronx that were similarly?
Yes.
So people in the Bronx knew the procedure that had to be followed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I have those authorizations signed by the officers of the Green Party of New York State for Mr. Archer in previous years.
And Mr. Richmond, just for everyone's understanding, can you give an indication as to the authority of the Board of Commissioners to make a determination in situations such as this when there may be an invalid or, well, we'll leave it at an invalid certificate of authorization submitted?
Commissioners, the election law provides that we will administer the certificate of authorization process in accordance with the election law and the party rules. The election law is a default provision. The party gives the authority to the party to adopt whatever rules it determines to be appropriate to give to whichever body it chooses to give the authority for certificate of authorization. The normal default would be in an organized party would be the elected county committee within the county for the party. It's a multi-county jurisdiction and the party rules govern. And in some cases, between meetings, the county committee, those powers are given to an executive committee. In this case, the state party has adopted the rules following the last primary when they had the reorganization in 2012, adopted them and given that power to the executive committee. We are charged with administering the Wilson-Bakula process in accordance with those rules. We will admit that when we received the certificate of authorization in July, it wasn't noted that it was not coming from the certificate of people who should be signed. It should be signed according to the rules by the presiding officer and secretary of the executive committee of the state party. Subsequent research has shown that we have in the past received such certificates, including one from Mr. Archer last year when they ran for city council. And so this should have been on the prima facie calendar by the board. It was only though as a result of the complaint filed by the officers of the Green Party that we did the necessary research that we found out, and that's why we scheduled this for a hearing. But normally this would have come up as a prima facie matter on your calendar in the hearing for July, with or without an objection, because it was the same as if it was filed by any other group that is not authorized.
Okay, so that's the reason why we're not in court today, because this is something that we would have otherwise, had we picked it up, we would have had on the prima facie calendar. Okay, because a number of the commissioners were sort of scratching their heads, and scratched our heads last week as to why this was coming before us sort of in this way, because this is not normally the type of proceeding that we have. We're not really in a position to take much in the way of evidence and to take testimony and things of that sort. But this is really, it seems to me, to be a documentary issue that's come before us, where we have specific rules of the party that were not, apparently not complied with. So if it's okay, I'd like to hear from this gentleman to explain how this is appropriate and why the filing was not inappropriately made with the board without the state board approval. State committee.
Yes, it is the position of the Bronx County Green Party that we have been continuously affiliated with the Green Party of New York State since 2008, and that is borne out by the evidence in Exhibit B, which shows submittal and approval. If one reads it in its entirety, I think only the cover first few pages are read, but when we read it to the end, it's apparent that it's a submittal and approval of Bronx County Green Party bylaws that were of 1/14/2008 in the months of February and March of 2008, and approved by the Green Party of New York State Committee on motion of Ms. Matera. By a vote
2008?
in 2008.
Yeah, but the rules changed in 2010, so please address that.
I'm addressing
Okay,
that.
correct. But you can only have a county committee of a party with ballot status. Did the Green Party have ballot status in 2008?
No, I'm addressing the continuous existence of an organization that in 2000, that was an independent body in 2008. It was an independent body in 2010. The Green Party of New York State called itself a state committee, but it was not a state committee on the meaning of the law. And when the Green Party, we attained ballot status by the election of November 2010, it again became a ballot status Green Party. But the organization continued, and the Bronx County organization continued. And that is our position. This is the state legislature, even though it's re-elected in every 2 years, continues as a body. The counties that are affiliated with New York State do not have to be affiliated each time. So that is our position. And in bearing that out, the Bronx County elected 2 state committee representatives, both in 2010 and 2012. These representatives were elected by designating petition that were accepted, but these were enrolled Greens, so Anthony Granowitz and Lily Granowitz. These representatives were seated in at the Green Party of New York State Committee. They were never challenged. They were never expelled. This is evidence of something. The commissioners can decide.
I would like
at this time to
be an affiliated county where their state committee rules dated July 6, 2013. Bronx is not listed there.
That is correct. It's our position that in order to disaffiliate a county, affirmative action is required of the Green Party of New York State Committee to disaffiliate a county that was previously affiliated. That was not, action is not aware, we're not aware of any such action.
Yes.
The statute provides, in 2010, when they achieved ballot status, section 2-108 provides that a state committee and county committees of a new political party, which in effect the Green Party became on January 1st, 2011, with the advent of the new calendar year, which meets prior to the first primary, for which members of such party shall become enrolled, shall be formed as provided by the rules of such party. We've heard that testimony here. There was then a primary election in 2012. State committee members were elected, and then the state committee adopted rules that governed its organization. And then in 2013, the certificate of officers was filed along with the notification to the board. So what happened as an independent body before they had ballot status, commissioners, it has no more effect than any other social club or anything else you belong to. It's only the act of the people of the state of New York, the voters, giving them 50,000 votes in the 2010 election, which give them certain rights and responsibilities under the election law. Our responsibility, though, is to administer the rules of the approval process in accordance with the election law and the party rules duly adopted under it. So I'm going to ask, do you believe that the rules adopted by the New York State Green Party were not properly adopted?
I think we're getting into evidentiary matters that we're not coming here to argue. If we have a full evidentiary hearing, we could argue these things and examine these things. I think we need a full
I move
evidentiary.
that we amend the prima facie calendar to include Mr. Archer's candidacy as a prima facie matter.
They need to have an appropriate certificate of authorization filed.
Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? Motion carries. One abstention.
So the candidate now will not appear on the ballot. The commissioner's record date of action that was today, and Mr. Archer has whatever rights he has under the election.
So if you want, you can go to court.
So this is appealable to Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court.
Has the record been preserved? We have a record of this hearing.
We'll have minutes eventually done, but, you know, there's a proceeding, the courts of the state of New York are familiar how the board operates, and we will provide all the evidence that the court director will provide that.
All right,
We thank you for your time in helping us protect the integrity of our ballot line.
all right, agenda item number 2, hearing regarding the CID County Classroom Report on independent nominating petition and related matters for the November 6, 2014 general election.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. We have a second call item from September 4th. Regarding that, it's the candidacy of David Paul Garland for the Dr. Dunn Party, member of Assembly, 76th Assembly District. No acceptance filed.
The Dunn Party?
Yes.
Anybody, any appearances?
Yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The first thing I would like to do is submit a piece of evidence, which is a photocopy of a lawfully executed and notarized statement, which was a certificate of acceptance that was signed and notarized by me, by Mr. Garland on August 11th.
Can you please state your notice of appearance for the record?
My name is Robert Morgan, and I'm appearing on behalf of David Garland for the Dunn Party matter.
Mr. Richmond?
Commissioner, there is a certificate of acceptance, supposed, he is being executed on August 11th, a copy, without any indication that it was ever filed with the board.
So,
Would August 11th have been timely?
August 22nd was the due date.
So what a good time to go. Do you have a stamped copy showing that we received it?
I do not have the stamped copy, sir. I filed everything on August 15th, and while I had 17 volumes of petitions that had hundreds and hundreds of pages, and I can't remember the exact moment I did file it, I do submit to you that it would have been a due course of action for us to file this certificate, considering that in David Garland's entire political career, he has not accepted a nomination for any party he's ever been on, which have been many over the course of his political career. So I think that when you look at the fact it was a lawfully executed affidavit document sworn by me, who is a commissioned notary by the state of New York, and the fact that we did file everything else on time and properly, and that this is dated accordingly, I think the preponderance of the evidence is that you can infer that there was a due course, and the ordinary course of action would have been for it to be filed. And I also want to submit the fact that you guys are using the same standards of Board of Elections procedure to infer the fact that it was not filed. You just assume that the ordinary course would have been for it to show up if it was filed. And I'm saying the ordinary course of the Friends of David Garland campaign organization would have been for it to be filed. And the fact is that I have a copy of an executed document. So I think you should be able to, the preponderance of the evidence allows you to infer the ordinary course of action here that it was in fact filed with the rest of the documents.
So your statement is that you filed this along with 17 other volumes, so you came in
I
with
believe
all the paperwork?
I believe I did, yes.
Mr. Graves, have you had an opportunity to search out records to find a signed or filed authorization?
Yes, we've done an exhaustive
Accepted?
search.
Accepted?
No record of this document.
What about our recording log? As documents come in?
No.
Any
We had a special procedure this year of scanning documents as they came at the front counter, and we have no record of any scan being done.
You don't have the document, you don't
I
have
have
a
a
scanned
document.
record of the
Scanned.
document. Oh, you don't have any notation that it was even logged in?
Nothing.
Well, we have the representation of the person who did the filing to demonstrate that it was done timely and was submitted. It's certainly true that we take great care in looking at this for documents and maintaining documents filed with the board, but it is possible that it was filed and was lost. It could have been put within several hundred pages of petitions, and here we have someone who is standing up and saying that he notarized it, it was done, and it was filed, and we could have very easily lost it.
Mr. Graves, at any time we have lost a piece of paper, this is, right? At another election or something like that, we lost,
We have.
right?
Misplaced.
We misplaced, but always the party in interest was able to produce a copy of the clocked-in copy, since documents like this, after they're given to
All the
handed
time?
in, that's the only reason we've been able to restore someone to the ballot, in this case when the records weren't there. But Commissioners, the matter of practice is that except for designated petitions itself, every other document that gets filed, a copy is clocked in,
I know,
a copy is given to the
Mr.
filer.
Right, I know the procedure, I know of clocking in, and I can say that sometimes some things might not get clocked in.
Mr. Graves.
Might have happened. I don't know, depending on the date, the documents and all.
Mr. Graves, the document that you have in front of you, is that a photocopy or is that an original?
It appears to be a photocopy.
The
Is
original
it
would have been
possible
filed.
that the copy was made here and not stamped and given back to them? I mean, all of these things are possible. We have
Right.
somebody who's standing up here who's representing to us that it was properly filed.
But at the same time, we have our department indicating that we added an extra procedure, which is the scanning of the document as an additional backup to us providing a stamped copy, and we have neither.
I think you guys need to evaluate the actual evidence before you, which is my testimony, my statement as a commissioned notary. And the fact is, other than the assumption that it didn't appear, you guys don't have any actual evidence that it wasn't turned in, and you should just
We don't have any
evaluate.
evidence that it was actually filed either. All it is a document showing that it was signed, not filed, and the question is whether or not it's been filed.
Right.
So the question is whether the testimony is sufficient to rebut the presumption that would have occurred in the event that it was filed in the ordinary course. And here we have a person who's standing up and saying yes, and to me, it's sufficient to rebut that presumption.
Commissioner Yimmy, maybe we should take him under oath then, because he hasn't been sworn in.
That's correct.
You want to swear him in? I don't have the language in front of
You
me. You hereby
solemnly- You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give before this Board of Commissioners is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Under the penalties of perjury?
yes.
Go ahead, make your statement.
To the best of my knowledge, the document was filed along with,
That's
No,
a specific
no.
question. Did you file this document?
to the best of my knowledge, it is.
That's not a statement.
That
See,
answers the question.
that comes right out of the movie about Abraham Lincoln, where he gives a sworn statement to Congress that the commissioners were not in Washington. Everybody had seen the movie.
Well, I'll make two unequivocal statements and an
Okay.
unequivocal one. The two unequivocal statements is, yes, I notarized it on August 11th, And the other unequivocal statement is, yes, I put it in my files along with the rest of the dump party petitions. Do I have an absolute synapse in my mind of the moment it was handed over to CRU along with 700 pages of documents? I don't think that's a reasonable expectation, but that's my testimony, and I swear that's the truth.
Is there a motion?
I move that we remove it from the prima facie calendar on the basis of the testimony of Mr. Morgan.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstain? I
Opposed.
oppose. We have a roll call?
Yes. On Commissioner Humane's motion to remove this from the prima facie calendar, Commissioner Castorino,
Oppose.
Commissioner Dent,
Opposed.
Commissioner Costello,
Opposed.
Commissioner Randino, Commissioner Shamoon,
Abstain.
Commissioner Humane,
Aye.
Secretary Michelle,
Yes.
Mr. President. On the vote on the Humane motion, 3 commissioners voted in favor, 4 commissioners voting no, 1 commissioner abstaining, fails to receive 6 affirmative votes, the motion fails.
Thank you.
Wait a second, we're not done yet. Let's take the say, if somebody's got to move, all right, so I move that we move the prima facie report.
I'll second. All in favor?
I'm opposed.
Anybody opposed or abstain? Yes.
On the motion to adopt the prima facie calendar, Commissioner Castorino,
Aye.
Commissioner Dent, Commissioner Costello, Commissioner Randino, Commissioner Shamoon, Commissioner Humane,
Nay.
Commissioner, Secretary Michelle,
Opposed.
President Roger.
Yes.
By a vote of 5 commissioners in favor, 3 opposed, the motion is not agreed to.
So the candidate remains on the ballot.
So the motion to adopt the prima facie report is not adopted. At the moment, the candidate remains on the ballot.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time and dedication.
Agenda item number 3, the minutes of 9/4/14. Has everybody had an opportunity to review them? Is there a motion to adopt them? Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain?
Abstain.
All right. Motion carries with 1 abstention. Michael Ryan.
Okay. Sorry. That's not because you called Mr. Ryan, I wasn't called. Some people might have thought that.
Before we get started, I'd like to start off with a little bit of good news. The Board of Elections family has welcomed a new arrival this morning. Tristan Valentino was born this morning at 9, very early this morning, weighing in at 9 pounds and 9 ounces, and that would be Ms. Vasquez's second child. So, apparently mother and child are all doing well.
Has he been registered?
Only question is, did he vote several times already?
Yeah, sure. Somehow I'm figuring. As we all know, we conducted a primary election last week. We're in the very preliminary stages of analyzing our performance, but I wanted to report back at least some of the feedback that we got. First of all, as presently stands, the turnout for this election was slightly over 10%. So it was not a heavy turnout by any stretch of the imagination. In any event, we tried some new things this election cycle, and one of the things that apparently were welcomed at the poll site was the tab poll books, both from my rather informal kind of anecdotal analysis of going around to poll locations throughout the city, I took the time at every poll location that I visited, which was at least a dozen, to speak to each one of the poll workers, and they all agree unanimously that it made a big difference. And we're hopeful that that will continue to make a big difference in processing voters when we have a higher voter turnout. In addition, this was the first time that we did not use the voter cards, fully eliminated voter cards. And again, that seemed to be a unanimous time save, agreed upon time saver. The other thing that we did to offset some of the concerns of the commissioners with respect to the elimination of the voter cards and the quote-unquote ticket to the scanner was we used an enhanced privacy sleeve, which had been demonstrated or at least shown to the commissioners here in open meetings before. The regular one for a voter coming in, as opposed to somebody voting by affidavit, had all black ink, and the affidavit had red ink, so that they could make a clear differentiation between the voters that were going to vote on election day. In addition to that, that change, the sleeve itself is long enough to accommodate any ballot size, so it won't be hanging out over. It'll increase voter privacy as well, and it also is clear when someone's going to vote. One of the concerns that we wanted to make sure that people would not be approaching the scanner without anybody knowing who they were. Well, now they have a very substantial folder in their hands, and it's clear that the folks that are approaching the scanner should be approaching the scanner. The other thing that it did for us is it allowed us, by printing the instructions on the privacy sleeves, it saved us hundreds of man-hours in pre-election setup, because we're no longer requiring our staff to manually insert the voter instructions into the privacy booths throughout the city. So that was a big help as well. The other thing that we did to enhance voter privacy, and in response to the complaints that we've heard in the past, we put larger privacy screens on either side of the scanner. They come up well above the height of the scanner, and that was helpful as well. Stepping away from the voter experience, we had tablets were used by all staff to respond to complaints and problems on election day, and our preliminary data indicates that we have about 85% usage of the tablets, which means that we still have a little bit of a ways to go in terms of educating all of the folks out in the field, but it also is an improvement over what has been done in the past. We tried numerous little tweaks to the system to indicate, to hopefully speed up the results on election night. And we found that leaving the most recent federal primary in June off to the side, since we did deploy uploading at one poll site in that election event, and the results came in very fast. But comparing it to prior, we have made improvements in terms of the producing of results. For example, in 2014 primary, the first PMD was processed at 9:10, as opposed to 9:35 in the 2013 general. And we have a lot of data analysis on this, but for today's purposes, since it's all preliminary, in the 2014 primary, the one that just passed, we had the peak data processing at 10:25, as opposed to peak data processing being at 11:05 for the general in 2013. So we're seeing a downward trend. Some of that downward trend is related to the fact that people are just getting better at doing it, and so there's going to be a certain amount of that, which we've seen a slight downward trend in general, but we also implemented some new things. Some of them seem to have worked, others didn't get us quote unquote as much bang for the buck as we would have hoped, but in any event, I think it brings us, not for today's purposes, but for future meetings, we have to continue to look at this process. And my feeling is based on what we've learned here, and we'll get a better understanding after the general, is that as long as we rely on a delivery system, regardless of what that delivery system is, there is going to be built-in delay in getting the results out. So I plan on sitting down with staff and coming back to the commissioners, in the future with some recommendations, and with a view toward developing a process that allows for the uploading of the data from the poll sites. Obviously, that's going to come with cost. There's a lot of different ways that we could do it. We're not prepared to discuss all of that, but I think that we've tried a lot of different tweaks along the way, and this started from before I got here, but certainly after I came in last year, and I think the data is pretty compelling that as long as we're going to continue on that process, we're going to be tweaking around the edges in terms of speeding up time. That we have to look at a way of utilizing the technology in the best way that we can, and putting people in cars regardless of what personnel is doing. As we had indicated, we had used 80 monitors. Our preliminary results indicate that the AD monitors seem to have, for this election cycle, done exactly what they always do, which is to close out the polls, because we segregated out those PMDs that were going to be returned by the AD monitors, and we did not see a substantial difference between PMDs that were delivered by the police versus PMDs that were delivered by the AD monitors. The idea behind that was to try to get them in early. That does not seem to have happened. In addition to that, we found that some of our busier locations in the city, and I guess it would stand to reason, they seem to be the ones coming in the latest. And that's driving down our ability to report larger percentage of turnout earlier in the night. When we're getting a rush in, later, we have to reevaluate that, but I think the ultimate goal has to be reporting out from the poll sites. The earliest first fit was uploaded about 9/12. So we did get some earlier, and like I said, when you look at, I have a graph analysis which is not finished yet because we're still in the process of doing the certification, so I didn't want to share it, but it's not going to change that much. But you can look at it, and you can see almost every election follows the same basic trend. There is a slow start, then a peak, and then a drop-off. And the reason I picked for today's meeting the peak is it kind of gives you that one opportunity to compare apples to apples, if you will. And the peak of data came in, meaning the bulk of sticks that were processed, that came in at 10:25. That's a full 40 minutes earlier than the general from 2013. So the things that we tried made a difference. But at the back end, we're still processing some stuff after midnight. And some of that stuff happens to come from the busier areas in the city, and I think that the delivery system ultimately is an impediment to getting results fast.
Mr. Ryan, where did the earliest stick come from?
I don't have that particular information because I was looking at a graph.
It was probably Richmond. I just wanted
Steve Richmond had it in his pocket?
No.
Richmond County, okay. Right. So, like I said, we're in the process of doing all of that analysis, but it's clear to me, at least, that a conversation needs to be had as to whether or not A, the funding's gonna be available, and B, if it is, what can we do to get the results, more quickly. But in any event, in terms of some other things, the VEO unit reports that 6 scanners were replaced citywide and 5 ballot marking devices were replaced citywide on election day.
Is that up or down?
It's down. That's down, and ballot jams are under analysis, but the preliminary reports are that they're down as well. So it appears as the firmware changes that were made to the system have helped in that regard, all of which enhances the voter experience. And with respect to the other matters, we're still in the process of gathering all that information back, so that's about as much as I'm comfortable with sharing today. But as we meet every week, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week and in the weeks thereafter with respect to this election.
Commissioner May?
Yeah, just one point. A number of the voting machine clerks were sort of stuck between a balancing test of how much help to give voters and how much to stay away, because in the training, the point was made not to stand over and hover over the people putting their votes and their ballots into the scanners. And many people, I noticed, were putting the ballots on top of the slot rather than in the slot, and so that was a question and an issue. Something that we need to wrestle with is where does the sort of fine line come between trying to be helpful and trying to be snoopy. But that's just an issue that I saw in a number of the different polling places that I went to. And that's, so clearly the training was good, or because they were concerned and they weren't helping because they didn't want to come up close and say, no, it goes under. But that's just something we need to look at.
Yeah, I think that is a balance, and I think that's kind of part of the problem. We did get quite a bit of pushback, not just in, and again, not just in New York City. This seems to be a problem that faces every jurisdiction, at least in New York State, that's dealing with with these kinds of machines. But certainly, our consultants have went out to many poll sites, and they're going to report back to us. We'll go through the coordinated journals. We'll do our debriefing process, and that'll be something that's addressed within that. And it's like anything else. There are judgment calls that have to be made when human beings intervene, and whatever efforts we make in terms of training, there still is going to be that judgment made in that moment. Do I approach somebody and help them, or do I lay back? Is this a problem that the voter can solve on their own? But I think we need to be sensitive to all of those issues and get as much feedback in that regard as we can.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're reporting so quickly and how important it is to get it back to 1 o'clock news. I'm curious, how many of the PMDs were not returned, or what percentage of vote was not counted by either human error or poll workers or personnel? Do we know?
It's very low on the aggregate, but and again, I don't have those final reports, but it's a very low percentage on the aggregate. But what you do find is in some of the down the ballot contests, you have when 2 or 3 sticks are not returned, which in the aggregate don't make a real impact. In a down the ballot contest, especially in one in particular that's very close, the lack of reading of those 3 particular sticks in that one contest makes a difference on, at least in perception of what happens on election night versus where the reality seems to be moving now. So yeah, delivery is always an issue, and I think that moving towards the uploading of the PMDs poll site will eliminate a lot of those. What it won't eliminate is if there is a stick that is unable to be read. If it can't be read, it can't be read, but that's such a small percentage of what we're dealing with. Like for example, if you have a location that has 3 PMDs going into a bag, all 3 of them won't be read if the delivery process doesn't happen. But you can't make that same assumption that, you know, if this stick is bad, then the other 2 that are in that group are also going to be bad sticks. Those will likely be uploaded. So in that particular situation, if there was a bad stick in the delivery bag, you would eliminate, you know, by 2/3 the breadth of the problem. So that's why I keep saying every part of this process that I analyze, whether it's the speed, whether it's the accuracy, no matter how you look at it, if we have the ability to upload that information while we have it in a single site, and the less we transport it and the less we move it around before we get it into the system, the better off everybody's going to be. That's my opinion. I'm sure there's people who might disagree with it.
Anything else? All right, is there a motion to move to executive session? Mr. Flax?
It's on? Well, anyway. Secretary Alan Flax, Manhattan. On Election Day, I visited, speaking only of New York County, I visited a good number of polling places, especially in the evening. And I found that the polling places were set up, you often have people in the audience who said, I was a poll site coordinator, let me tell you of my experiences. This is along those lines, but not as long. I found that the poll sites I saw, not 200, maybe about 20, were set up very well according to regulation, and the visual signs, and especially those stanchions with the ED number on top, extremely helpful. Everything was going according to Hoyle or Ryan. However, I noticed that at the closing, still most workers just didn't get it. It is more complicated. It's not because it's a new system. It is more complicated. There are more steps, lots more to do. And when you had a good poll site coordinator, they closed. However, once again I say, my observation is that half the poll workers that I've observed should not be, and that also applies to the Manhattan Borough Office only, that some lack the physical ability, some lack the intellectual quotient to be able to do the job. And it's your fault, commissioners, because they're poorly hired, poorly trained, poorly supervised, and poorly managed, and you're the managers. The time I heard from your own people, 9:15 p.m. to 2 a.m. when the last results came in. The delays were northern Manhattan, the Bronx, and some parts of Queens. I heard say that I questioned, Far Rockaway. No, they came in early. They got their act together, and the police are very good in rushing the flash drives to the precinct. And they were among the first, Far Rockaway. So distance, of course, means nothing. With regard to my perennial issue of the tapes, be advised that the written information issued to the police officers at the polling place sites said there are 3 tapes. That's what they had. I tried to get some cops to give me their, no, I have to give it back. But it said 3 tapes. And as for the tapes, the quote, the wall tapes, unquote, some of them had extraneous markings on them. Even poll workers, inspectors wrote on them, even if they say scanner A and put the A on it. As any of you who practice law know, you don't alter or add things to documents. It's not a good practice. And even though putting A, B, C, D, whatever, to indicate which scanner that tape came from is a very good thing. It was helpful. There were extraneous markings by sometimes a poll watcher, mostly the poll workers. That's why maybe you should have another tape, public only, that you don't care what happens to it, if it's cut up or shredded. Also, there's a misconception that you cannot print out the results by ED, election district. You can. You may have to shut it down and reboot the scanner, but it can, and that night, print out the results by election district. But who will want to stay for it? And I just want to add something else. I like your term uploading and downloading. For the old timers who knew about the electronic ether, you use uploading when you mean downloading, and downloading when you mean uploading. You reverse the significance of those terms that have been common over the decades. Thank you.
I move that we go into executive session for personnel matters. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. In case no one's here, was advanced 66 hours to be paid back with the accruals upon her return. And
Troy was not advanced. He's entitled to it because he's been here more than 10 years.
Discretionary. Ms. Savoy has been an employee with the board since March 21st, 2011, and she will have her accruals upon her return on October 6, 2014. And Shante Brown was, thank you. Shante Brown, an administrative assistant, will be granted 420 hours of advanced time to be paid back with her accruals upon her return. And finally, the commissioners received a letter of resignation from John Bugiamas as of September 15, 2014. The commissioners have accepted his resignation. The advisory has been withdrawn, and his suspension is now terminated. There being no other action, is a motion to adjourn the executive, today's meeting. Is there a second? Second? Second. Okay, all in favor, anybody opposed, abstaining, motion carries. I did.